Hello friends, Rabbi Jacques Skukierkorn from Temple Israel here to talk to you about the Haftorah Parsha of this week. The Parsha of this week is Pinchas, named after a very zealous guy, Pinchas, who loved God, who was highly devoted to God's service. And it's a special portion because not only we read it this time of the year, but we also read it during the holidays, because in that portion is the description of the sacrifices that happen on a daily basis on the holidays. But the main story of the Parsha evidently is the story of Pinchas, who was so zealous for God, who killed some people who were doing bad things, and thus stopped the plague that was happening, that God had sent because of the misdeeds of the people. The Haftorah is one of my favorite stories in the whole Torah. It comes from the first book of Kings, chapter 18, verses 46 to chapter 19, verses 21. The story of the prophet Elijah and the confrontation with the evil queen Jezebel. So here's the story. There was this weak, evil queen. Her name was Jezebel. She was a Phoenician. She was married to King Ahab, and she brought the cult of Baal to the land of Israel. She even brought prophets. She even made the worship of the God of Israel illegal, treason. So Elijah meets them and confronts them and tells them what they're doing is wrong. It's going to cause great trouble for the people. It's going to cause the end of Ahab's kingship, which happened. And then they arrange for a confrontation. It's Elijah by himself and all the prophets of Baal, and the rules were each one of them would set up an altar of sacrifice. They would then ask their God to send fire from heaven to accept the sacrifice and consume that offering. What happens? The prophets of Baal go and they try and they cry and they slash themselves, they bleed themselves to ask to entreat their God's mercy. Nothing happens. Comes Elijah's time. He is very theatrical, says, let's make this interesting. He takes some water, pours water on it. And then he asks God, and a fire comes from heaven, consumes the sacrifices, the altar, spills over the prophets of Baal's temple, consumes that one as well, and the fire burns the prophets of Baal as well, kills all of them. It's a great scene. Then, however, Jezebel is really angry at Elijah. He has to run away. He has to run away to the desert. And he's there, and God appears to him in a grandiose way, which I'll tell you about in a minute. And then he is instructed by God that he has to go back to the north and continue fighting against idolatry and evil. So what do we learn here? There are two things. The first one is to be zealous, not to be afraid to do what's right. You can be accused of many things, but never of being afraid to do what's right. And the other one is the story when then God appears to Elijah. It says there, I'll read for you, first chapter of Kings, verses 19, verses 11 and 12. Behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore mountains and shattered rocks before the Lord. It's right before. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind there was an earthquake, but the Lord was not in it either. And after the earthquake there was a fire, but the Lord was not in it. And after the fire came a gentle, small voice. That's where God was. In our tradition, in our imagination, we like to think of God coming in grandiose ways. When you think of a big deal, a huge fire, a huge wind, an earthquake, a volcano, something Hollywood-like. Those are often thought about as heralders, announcing the coming of God. They, however, do not show God as perfectly, according to the text, as the quiet, the calm that comes right after the storm. We should concentrate more on listening to this small voice. The role of a great leader is not to shout fire and brimstone, but to teach people to listen to the small, gentle voice they carry inside, the voice of God that each one of us has inside. I want to believe that my job as a leader, as a rabbi, is not to create the thunder and the fire and the noise, but to inspire people to look within and find out that they have the answer. They know what God wants from them inside them. I hope you do. Shabbat Shalom.